Hello, my name's Roy Johnson and welcome to Acoustic RGJ. Today I'm going to be talking about Pics and Plectrums, and before I start I just want to express the fact that I'm not endorsed by any manufacturers. It's almost impossible to talk about guitar picks without mentioning some makers' names, so just bear with me as I go through this. I'm really not endorsing any products at all, and in fact, because it's such a personal choice, I'm not even going to tell you what my own favourites are. And there are 4 different things to think about when considering a guitar pick. 1 is the size and shape, 2, how thick it is, 3, what it's made of, and 4, how you hold on to it. And the reason we consider all these things is because it can really make an impact in how your guitar playing sounds. Now, as you can see, there's a huge range of different shapes and colours and thicknesses of pick. And if you go into a shop and ask to look for a pick, I'm sure the shopkeeper will produce boxes and boxes of different coloured picks, and it's really difficult to make a good choice. But why is pick choice so important? If you think about it, the source of the sound that you generate from a guitar is the pick itself. There's nothing there until that pick hits the string. Now, if you don't produce a good clean sound at that point, it doesn't really matter how expensive your guitar is, how good your amplification is, you're going to have a poor sound. And by amplifying that poor sound, all you're going to get is a louder poor sound. I remember when I was interested in stereos, somebody pointed out to me the fact that you should invest most of your money in the needle or the stylus, because that's where it picks the sound up from the groove in a record. You can also think about it from the point of view of a camera lens. If your camera lens isn't up to scratch, or it's dirty or smited and scratched, it doesn't matter if you've got a £3,000 body on the end of the camera. The results are going to be that when you look at your exposed image, you're going to have a scratched, mucky, dirty looking image. The same is for a pick. Get a clean sound with your pick and you have a good clean sound coming through your guitar. So let's start by thinking about how you should hold a guitar pick. There's a few things to think about. Firstly, actually how you hold the pick itself. Then there's how tightly you hold the pick. How much of the pick is actually exposed, how much is poking out from your fingers in order for you to strike the strings. And also the angle of the pick when it strikes the strings. Okay, so I'll show you how I hold a pick. Bear with me, I'm going to have all sorts of focusing problems here, but we'll see how we get on. Now, as I said, there are many different ways of holding a pick, and this is just my preferred method. What I do is I take my thumb and finger and I put them in kind of opposite directions, and then I push the pick in between the thumb and the first joint of my index finger. You'll probably find this a little bit uncomfortable maybe initially, and you'd want to move things around a bit. Try and keep as small a part as is relevant to your playing showing. I've got probably about 5mm showing just there. The reason I like this style of hold is because I can actually use my thumb if I want to kind of move the pick about, although generally I tend to use more of a kind of a wrist action. And as I said before, try not to put too much tension, try not to squeeze the pick too tightly. If you squeeze the pick too tightly, you'll end up with a lot of tension in your forearm. Some people will hold a pick like this. I find it's a bit difficult to control. It feels like holding a big paddle. It needs quite a lot of movement in the hand to get the tip of the pick moving. So yes, I think thumb, index finger, push it in between and just adjust it a little bit until you get the right amount of pick that's comfortable for your playing. In terms of presenting the pick to the string, if I put the flat edge of the pick against the string and then try and pluck the string, I've got to force the pick right through the string. That flat edge is creating a lot of resistance, and it also produces quite a thin, sharp sound. But if I angle the pick slightly so that the front edge hits the string first, you can immediately hear that the tone sounds a lot warmer compared to... Now there may be times when you want to have a thin, sharp sound, in which case altering that angle might be the thing to do. By presenting the front edge for a downstroke, the back edge for an upstroke, you get a much warmer sound. And also the fact that you're kind of rolling off the string means there's less resistance, so you can actually play a lot quicker. Guitar picks come in various sizes, from quite small, the size of almost like a fingernail, up to kind of quite big triangular sizes. So I think the thing to consider here is really your physical characteristics. If you've got quite big fingers and thumbs, then actually trying to hold a small pick could be quite a difficult proposition. So a larger pick may be the best option. Also, it may be that you quite often drop picks, in which case a larger pick will give you a better surface area to grab hold of. The other consideration is with smaller picks. Because they are small, you'll have to hold onto them a little bit more tightly, and consequently you may get more tension in your arm, and it may result in a slightly heavier picking style. That may be something that you want if you'd really like to dig into your notes and dig into your chords. So let's have a think about the different types of materials that picks are made out of. Typically there are two categories: nylon and plastic. Plastic tends to come in different types such as Ultrex and Tortex. Nylon picks tend to be a lot softer than plastic picks. This makes them particularly suitable if you pick or you strum classical guitars which have nylon strings. They can obviously be used on steel strings, but I do find that one of the downsides of nylon picks is that the edges tend to rough up fairly quickly, so you can end up working through a packet of picks fairly quickly. One of the nice things about nylon picks is they often have a textured surface, so they're really good for holding onto and gripping. The typical manufacturer of nylon picks is Jim Dunlop. Cellulose picks were the original replacement for tortoiseshell. You can recognise those quite easily. They tend to be quite shiny and bright coloured. They tend to have a fairly snappy kind of sound when you play with them, almost a clicky sound. The disadvantage of celluloid picks is that they have a tendency to crack and snap over time, because celluloid is a fairly brittle material. Tortex picks, which are a kind of plastic, have a fairly powdery matte finish. They're quite comfortable to use, definitely worth a try. And the final picks just to consider for this video are the Ultrex picks. Ultrex picks are similar to Tortex really. Rather than being a matte finish, they have a kind of a sheen finish. Generally they're kind of fairly dull colours compared to the Tortex picks. Tortex picks tend to be kind of fairly bright pastel colours, whereas the Ultrex picks tend to come in different shades of brown. And many of the better Ultrex picks actually have a kind of a beveled finish, so you can have a right-handed or a left-handed finished pick, and the bevel on the edge of the pick means it slides across the strings really nicely and smoothly. The thickness of the pick you buy is often determined by the type of music that you play. If you like a really thin, light sound, then definitely have a look at nylon picks. And the nylon picks are generally available in gauges from 0.38mm, which is quite thin, up to around about 1.5mm, which is quite thick. And always bear in mind that having a thicker edge presented to an individual string will produce a much warmer sound, and I'll demonstrate this in a few seconds. And the Ultrex and Tortex type picks generally start in slightly thicker gauge than the nylon picks. The Ultrex starting around about 0.5mm and going up to 1.5mm. The thickness of the pick is really something to think about. Bear in mind that if you present a really thin pick to an individual string, that pick is going to bend slightly before it actually plucks the string. So that in itself is going to slow down your ability to pick individual melody lines quickly. However, when strummed, it produces quite a thin sound, a fairly percussive sound, and again that may be the sound that you want in your guitar playing. Right, I'm just going to demonstrate the difference in sound that you would get from a thin pick to a thicker pick. Now, recording something in a studio like mine isn't going to give you the ultimate listening experience. So in order to help maximise the difference, I'm actually going to mix two different types of pick. I'm going to use a 0.6mm nylon pick made by Jim Dunlop and a 1.3mm prime tone Jim Dunlop pick, which is made from Ultrex. So a quick demonstration of what different pick materials and different pick thicknesses sound like. So to start with, I'm going to play just a straightforward G major scale with a 1.3mm prime tone pick. Now let's compare that with a 0.6mm nylon pick made by Jim Dunlop. Let's just hear what they sound like strumming now. So again, I'll start off with the prime tone 1.3mm pick. And now the Jim Dunlop USA nylon 0.6mm. difference. Hopefully you could hear the difference between the thicker plastic pick and the thinner nylon pick. To me, the thicker plastic pick sounded like it had more bass and a slightly nicer tone. Strumming wise, you do have to try and hold a thicker pick fairly lightly, otherwise your playing can quickly sound very heavy. Strumming wise, the nylon pick had a slightly higher edge to it, and also playing individual notes I found I had to play quite hard in order to compensate for the amount of flexibility in the thinner nylon pick. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the video today. I'd just like to summarise some of the things we've been through. The first thing we looked at was how to hold the pick. My preferred method is to slide the pick between your thumb and the first finger, being careful not to hold the pick too tightly, otherwise that manifests itself with tension in your forearm, and that will reduce your ability to play music in a relaxed way. And the other thing is to keep the amount of pick projecting from the end of your fingers to a minimum so you can play more accurately. Then finally, try and keep that pick angled very slightly so when you're plucking strings, you pluck the string with the leading edge of the pick on the downstroke and the back edge of the pick on the upstroke. That way you're able to play a lot quicker and you'll have a much nicer tone. In terms of picks themselves, there are two basic types, plastic or nylon. They come in different sizes and different thicknesses, and it's that combination of how you hold the pick and the pick itself which affects the sound that you produce from your guitar. As I said before, pick selection is a very personal choice. Fortunately, picks are fairly cheap to buy, so go away and get a few, try them out, experiment and see which ones you prefer. You may end up finding that you finish off playing with a number of different types of pick depending on the style of music that you play. Also, if you're a multi-instrumentalist and you play guitar and mandolin and banjo, for example, you may find that you prefer a different type of pick for each instrument. So that's all for today. I hope you found the video interesting. Please feel free to make some comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and tick that little bell box, and then I can let you know when I've uploaded more videos. Take care, bye for now.